Welcome to episode 136, where stories stick to the page like s'mores, and every roll leads to a deeper connection. In this episode, we're diving into the whimsical and wildly original world of Marsh Hollow, a cooperative roll and write game bursting with charm, tension, and teamwork. We're joined today by designer Kervin from 4Y Games, whose upcoming Kickstarter title flips the genre on its head with a clever polyomino drawing mechanics and a heartwarming and slightly toasted narrative. Players take on the role of marshmallow tribes. That's right, you heard that. Trying to escape a shadowy cult of fire-worshipping foes determined to roast them over open flames. Strategy meets survival in this laugh out loud yet deeply tactical journey through the Hollow. We'll explore how this game encourages collaboration, creativity, and most of all, community, all while dodging skewers. So grab your dice and pencils, and most importantly, your sense of adventure. This is one sweet story you won't want to miss. It's cults, campfires, and confectionary chaos. Thanks for joining me. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
Hey, I am thrilled that we were able to do this. I'm really excited to have you on and getting to meet you at Gen Con, you warmed my heart. Thank you so much for that.
You bought me coffee. Of course I had to.
See, that's how I lull you in. If you want to be on the show, I'll buy you coffee at a con.
Pistachio oat milk lattes gets me every time.
Was good, wasn't it?
So good.
Yeah. I had a matcha latte. I had it for the first time the day before, and that was just really incredible. And I fell in love with matcha. I didn't even know that was a thing, but apparently it is.
I'm Asian. It's a thing.
Okay. Well, there you go. I'm a white boy from southern Louisiana. I don't know nothing about matcha, but now I do. I've been educated, so there we are. So you've got this game Marsh Hollow coming out. Tell us a little bit about the game, and then we'll get into how you came up with the story.
So in the game, you play Marshall the Marshmallow, whose family has been taken in by a pyromancy marshmallow cult. You, along with Animal the Forest, are going to go and try to break them out, armed with water balloons and water guns, and try to save them and prevent the swamp from being burnt down. That's kind of like the general story of Marsh Hollow.
Yeah. Explain a little bit about what I thought was most interesting in the prototype. And the version I saw is nowhere near as close as where you are today, based on the box you showed me. The polyomino, like you're drawing the polyomino shapes, but they don't touch. Like, explain that a little bit.
So, I love I love roll and writes. I love polyominoes, and generally speaking, in board game design language, when it's a polyomino game, you have a confined space, and you're trying to place these pieces as efficiently as possible within a given rule set to score points or to like not lose points. And I love polyominoes, but there are polyomino games that don't follow that. And one of my favorite ones is called Blockus. Blockus it's a family game. I played it a lot during the pandemic with the person I designed this game with and her parents. In Blockus, you have polyomino pieces, and you're trying to place them on a board. Your goal is to use them all, and you can only place them on the diagonals. So you can't have any of them touch orthogonally, like their sides can't touch.
Right.
And I always wondered why there aren't any other polyomino games that use polyominoes that way. And Blockus is very much an abstract game, and I always thought to myself, if you had a game that was similar to Blockus in that regard with a theme, I think it would be amazing. And so that's kind of how the mechanics of Marsh Hollow started.
Yeah, it was difficult. And even knowing Blockus, and you say it, and all of a sudden I'm like, that makes sense. I didn't put that together when I was playing it at first. Right? Like, it was very difficult to adjust to, okay, the pieces, you're drawing them, but they can't touch. They've got to be diagonal. I struggled with that for a little bit. And then we picked it up and ran away with it. It was pretty fantastic. How'd you come up with the story of a marshmallow trying to escape these fiery cultists?
So my co-designer, she's actually my best friend from high school. In her senior year of college, she went to like a comm design school where she had to take one object and put it through a bunch of different mediums. Her name's Kelly Reese, and she decided to use marshmallows. So she did like she carved into woodblock like a mouth where every taste bud was a different marshmallow. She had
Hmm.
like postcards. She had like this. Her final projects were crazy, and I was digging through my room, and I found her postcard that she had made her senior year. And I'm not kidding. I saw the game of Marsh Hollow. There were these marshmallows who were just kind of like doing their own thing. They were like skewering each other. They were like happy. They remind me a lot of what are they called? The Despicable Me guys. What are they called? The Minions. It's Minions.
Minions.
Yeah, so I always imagined Minions, but like marshmallows in this area. And I literally saw the game. And so I went up to her and I was like, I have this idea for a game. You already do marshmallows. You're a graphic designer. Like, let's see where this goes. And so that started a 3-year journey of trying to figure out board game design, trying to figure out stories, trying to find uh, TikToks, and trying to figure out how that works. And before we knew it, well, I mean, we're launching in a month, which is crazy.
That's insane. How was that? How was the process of learning game design, right? Because you had no experience with this beforehand, did you?
Kind of. Like, I did
Okay.
launch a game prior to this called Allow Me to Mansplain. That's one of the reasons why I got on TikTok originally. I had an idea for a game, and I did a bunch of research. I listened to a bunch of podcasts. I watched everything on YouTube. And I said, I think I could do this. Sure, why not? And so I've always been really good at games. My background is in theater. I've been really good at like analyzing how things work. And so, and I played a ton of games. And I think that's the one thing that helped me a lot is that I love games. I love playing different types of games. And I'm able to look at games, A, to enjoy it, but B, like figure out what about it makes it work. My
Right.
original idea for the game did not work,
Hmm.
surprisingly. My original idea for the game was there's a campfire and you're marshmallows, and the animals of the forest are coming to try to put out your fire. And so you're
Right.
trying to like defend from all these animals coming from different directions. But the one thing I wanted was I wanted it to be a roll and write. Roll and write is my favorite genre, and I wanted to figure a way to make a game to convince people who don't love roll and writes that roll and writes are worth their time. People talk about how roll and writes are like accounting with tweezers, how they're all the same, and it's just like it's solo and it's all of these things that aren't fun, and I don't agree with that. And so
Yeah.
that's when we came up with the idea originally. I realized that's a lot for a roll and write. That's a lot to ask for cards and paper to be attacked from different directions.
Yeah.
And so, and then I was like, okay, let's take it back. Let's figure it out. And then it slowly morphed into what it is today.
That's cool. What about, did you reach out to other designers for input or getting Kickstarter projects started? And if so, what was that experience like?
My journey into board game design and board game publishing is very different than most people, mostly
Mm-hmm.
because of TikTok.
Mm-hmm.
So I had after I launched my first game, I made a video and I talked about the different games that I had that could be in the works. And the last one that video was Marsh Hollow, and people absolutely loved the theme of that game. And even though that wasn't one that I wanted to make necessarily right now, if people are asking for it, like you kind of like if someone are interested, that's easier to get playtesters, that's easier to get everything. And so I said, sure, why not? And so that's when I asked Kelly to join me in the process. The When I started with the design, so she is very much a gateway gamer, like below
Okay.
gateway gamer. She's not really into like really crunchy board games. She's not really into like tons of pieces, and but her background is in design, and she's very big on making sure that like her biggest complaint about roll and writes is she's fighting with the design of the roll and write to where she can't actually play the game
Uh, I can see that.
because size is a priority, where your eye goes, and like there's different things that she takes inspiration because of her profession, that it's hard for her to like play a game. And so to have her to make a game that was intuitive to her, that followed a lot of the design rules, because apparently board game designers and artists break them a lot, to make that was we had to learn how to speak to each other. We had to learn to be like, well, what do you mean move? That was an hour conversation. Like
Okay.
when it comes to roll like when you say move, do you mean like up, down, left, right? Do you move like it was one of the wildest conversations we had. But so once we finally got some semblance of something to playtest, I playtested a lot. one of the best parts about having a roll and write is that it plays solo. So I play tested it a
Sure.
bunch way before I play tested with people. And Gen Con 3, I guess now the 3 Gen Cons ago, I asked my like 5 of my first ever followers on TikTok to join me in the BIPOC Lounge and play this game. And it was the first time I met all of them in person. It was probably the worst explanation of a game I've ever done in my life because Gen Con is overwhelming. I got to meet these people who've seen every video I've ever made, and
Right.
they played it. Like, I didn't mention it was a cooperative game until halfway through. Like, they played the game, and so their feedback was something I took to heart because one of the biggest complaints is probably not the right word for it, but when you have playtesters, it's people being honest with you about your game. And
Right.
my background's in theater. I'm kind of known for being very blunt. And so, like, being like, please tell me about your game. And I remember that feedback is what changed the direction of where Marsh Hollow went. Down to one of them said, Kervin, I have a hard time rotating shapes in my brain. I'm not spatially, like, spatial awareness is something I'm not very good at. These should be plastic cards. And I said, gosh dang it, that's such a good idea. And then from that playtest, like, I thought the game was fun. I thought it was great. And they said it wasn't great. They said they said it played, but they actually took the time to explain to me why things didn't
Why?
work for them, what was confusing, what I could have done better. They gave me ideas of where to go. And so the majority of my playtesters are board game content creators.
Right.
I probably played the game with 90% of board game TikTok, and they have had significant input to my game. Like, every time I look at the game and I see like, oh, we made this change because of this person. We made this change because of this person. And board game TikTok, they love all different types of games. And I realized the only reason why some people didn't like it was because they were overwhelmed with the choices, couldn't spatially rotate
Mm,
shapes, and so they would just choose the easier of the two pieces and just place it wherever because they felt like they were holding people back.
well, that's a good point. I hadn't considered that. So let me ask you, did you have any non-board game TikTokers that were playtesting? Because
Absolutely.
there's a culture of just playtesters, and that's what they do.
Absolutely. I would make videos and people would be like, I'd love to play it. And I said, well, if you have an email, let's go. And so I would play with them remotely. I would do blind play tests. On TikTok, I talk a lot about board games and board game adjacent things.
Right.
And I have a whole series called Things I Do, so my boyfriend will play board games with me because he loves Monopoly and he doesn't actually like to play board games. But I noticed someone was watching my, like, a couple of videos, and she would watch a couple of videos every 10, 15, 20 minutes over the course of a day. It was like 200
Okay.
videos that day, and I was like, that's really weird because it's pretty common for people when they first find your channel to just like mass spam like videos.
Sure.
And but she watched enough of them enough time to make me realize that she was actually watching my videos. And that night, as I was going to bed, I get this massive DM saying, I'm sorry if this is creepy, I'm not trying to be creepy, but something about you I connected with. I watched enough of your content to know that I like you and I want to support you. I would love to play this game with my kid. I know it's not made for children, but
Hmm.
I kind of want to see how it plays with children, with like my son. And I said, absolutely. So we played it with her son remotely. I had never met her prior. And we changed a few things because he's 6. His son was 6. So they were able to place things orthogonally and they started with a gun, but he understood the rules better than she was, and she's not a gamer. Her husband
Okay.
runs the local board gaming group in her city, and she's not a board gamer, but she was so excited to play this game because of the theme, and her
Right.
son loved it too. And so, like, I've learned that when I would play the game with members of people who don't play a lot of board games, or I play tested with people who aren't members of Board Game TikTok, how they how they explained the game back to me affected my teach of the games, because they look at things differently and they like different things appeal to them. And I've learned that every time I play it with someone who doesn't necessarily play roll and writes or board games, my teach, like, forever future changes a little bit.
Interesting. So I'm going to ask a question that I think I already know the answer to, but I like to ask it of designers. How easy was it for you to be vulnerable and open yourself up to that, to play testers and all of that criticism?
I'm a theater kid. Like, there's nothing these people could tell me that my
Yeah.
teachers didn't say meaner. So, A, it's that. B, I talk about diversity on TikTok. I share my personal experiences on a like platform where people are mean. People sometimes
Mm-hmm.
troll. And it's one of those things where I always view it as long as I can tell that you're trying to be helpful and it's coming from a place that isn't spiteful or mean, like you can hate my game. That's perfectly fine. But I need you to tell me why you hate the game.
Right.
I will sit down with you, like, I didn't like this. Well, what didn't you understand? And I will sit there and like spend time to be like, hey, if normally it's like one or two concepts that if you would have gotten, your game experience would have been completely different. And so I personally don't have problems with people not liking things I create. I have more of a problem if you don't like me.
That is a fair point. That is fair. Yeah, I feel that too. I want you to like me.
Exactly. It's like I think I'm great.
Well, you are great. And I think that your followers and your following pans out, right? It shows that you're pretty terrific. So, and now you've got this game coming out that's just, like I said, it's going to flip the genre on its tail because this is a unique take on that polyomino mechanic, and it's in a roll and write format, which is pretty spectacular.
I didn't intend to go out and make this game that like was significantly different than what's out there. That's not
Sure.
something that like I was trying to do. I definitely design theme first. There are people who
Right.
design mechanics first, people who design theme first. I very much care about themes, and I talk a lot about how on my channel how a lot of the games don't interest me. Like there's a lot of themes I don't care for, and that's fine. But I remember last year I was really big into Lorcana, which is the trading card game by
Mm-hmm.
Ravensburger, the Disney
Yep.
one. And I love Disney. And so I didn't buy board games last year because TCGs are expensive. And I
Mm-hmm.
wanted, and there are people in the industry who say, like, oh, I never play games with themes I don't love. And I said, I don't know what that's like.
Hmm.
That's not like a privilege that I have. And so I decided to play just Lorcana. And it changed the type of games I was like willing to play. Like I didn't realize it's okay to be like, you know what, I'm not sure I like the theme of the game. Maybe I'll pass because I always think that there's always something about a game you can love. There's whether it's like the
Yes.
people you're playing with or there's like a mechanic that's like really interesting. I think there's always something you could learn from a game, even if it's not from a theme you love. But I have actively prioritized finding games with like different themes because of that one decision I made. And then going into Marsh Hollow, I have converted people into lovers of roll and rights, which is crazy, which is like
That
not
is
something that like
insane.
that's not something that I was actively trying to do. I was just like, I want to convince people that this genre is worth it. And there are
Mm-hmm.
really good roll and rights that like even if you don't think you might like it, you might actually could. And they do. And I get to play roll and rights with them. I get to play with them online. And it's it's something that I didn't expect to happen, and I'm very happy and grateful that I was able to get to that.
And you should. I gotta say, I'm a little surprised by the reaction. I didn't realize there were that many people that just did not like roll and writes because
Yes.
they're just so accessible. You know, they don't require a massive table presence. They're easier to travel with. Yeah. And how many roll and write versions of larger board games have been published in the last 2 years? Tons.
Yeah, like they always say, it always feels like accounting with tweezers, and I'm like, I can see that. Like, there's some of them absolutely are
Mm-hmm.
just like tick mark, tick mark, tick marks. But just like every other genre, there's different things within it that are actually fun. And to write
Yeah.
off a whole genre because of what you think it is something that like I wanted to show people roll and writes are great.
Yes. And I think you achieve that. The theme is interesting. The theme didn't sing to me when I got the prototype from you. I was like, okay. Being honest, I was like, what? Okay. But but I also love playtesting for the sake of playtesting. And I also recognize that as a fellow creative, the importance of getting constructive feedback. So I want to be helpful. So my wife and I sat down and played and figured it out and was like, okay, the mechanics and the gameplay made it an interesting experience. And then after playing it 2 or 3 more times, it was like, this is adorable.
It is adorable.
It so is. And, there's so many cute games out there, but this is a new way of polyomino mechanics and a new way of rolling right, and just it took my breath away, if I'm being honest.
So originally, the style was supposed to be like kawaii, super cute, and then we got into there's a lot of characters in the game. I think there's like 11, 12 like individual animals. There's a bunch of little marshmallows, and when we were trying to figure out like in the kawaii style, they're all the same height. And
Mm-hmm.
part of the joy of having a bunch of different animals and in relation to marshmallows, saving other marshmallows is like the height differences, the play on like the different like movements and positions you can have. And so we were looking for different styles, and Kelly came up with Rubber Hose, which is what Cuphead is, and what Goofy,
Mm,
who is my favorite Disney character, was originally drawn in. So,
right.
and so that style is very much like that, and there aren't a lot of games that utilize that. I remember when I couldn't when I create a game as a publisher and a content creator, I think about the types of videos I would want to make. I think about my friends who are going to make content and like how their videos work. And if I want to make sure my game is highlighted well, I need to make sure that I have enough art, that I have enough things to unbox, that I have enough interesting things to show. And I remember thinking that if this was kawaii and it's just super cute, it would just be sarcastic coming from me. Like I'm a happy
Hmm.
person, but I want to be like, look how cute this is. Look how cute this is. It would be so like not real for me. And like I think things are cute and I think things can be like darker and cute and I think that cozy isn't necessarily the same for everybody. And you can do things that are cozy that aren't just like cute, but and have different people connect to your game because my game is a different type of game. And if I want to attract people who like different types of games, I'm gonna go a little dark. I'm gonna make things like cute. Like and there's some characters like the otter, freaking adorable. It's one of my the otter and the
Yep.
alligator are my favorite characters
Yep.
in the game. And to have them just be like and be able to show things and like I can't wait to have all the merch. That's another thing is that
Oh
we
my
spent
God.
2.5 years trying to figure out the style, and the reason why it's taken so long was because we wanted to make sure the art was right and the characters were correct, and like we even did a comic for to explain the lore of the game. I, we
Nice.
we wanted to show something that isn't really out there, especially for
Mm-hmm.
roll rights, to be like, this is this is what can be. And a lot
Right.
of people thought I was crazy. A lot of people in the industry were confused and they're like, you could have done this sooner, you could have listed tariffs, you could have done all of this. But I always tell them, but if it makes sense for me, that's all that really matters.
Right.
And
Absolutely.
my audience has been following me the entire 2.5 years. And I I can honestly say, as like an indie board game publisher, I wasn't hurting for playtesters. And that's one of the
Okay.
coolest things to know is that there are people who want to support me, they want to support the game,
Yep.
and you're more likely to get better playtesters to give you better ideas for your game. And it's slowly evolved, and I'm so happy with where it is.
That's incredible. Because how many designers I know, they complain about, not complain, that's not the right word, but they share their frustrations with how difficult it is to find a diverse group. And I don't mean, just a wide number of different play testers from around wherever, and struggle with that. So it's great that you were able to instantly have a pool of play testers to get that feedback.
And not even that, just having like a roll and write. I mean, we got to play remotely. And so I didn't have to be in person to
Right.
show. We were able to figure that out. And it was incredibly helpful, and probably it would have taken me a lot longer if we had decided to not do a roll and write.
Do you have any regrets, or maybe not regrets, but things you would do differently if you were to do it over again?
Like with the like designing the game or like the Kickstarter or just like everything.
Everything. And that's not meant to be a trick question. There's no right or wrong.
I will say, I will say, the so every year I do 10 things that scare me. As someone who's like an anxious person,
Mm-hmm.
I think it's important to because you don't always have control over when you're pushed outside of your comfort zone. And I think
Right.
it's important to be the person sometimes to push you out of your comfort zone. I think it's one of the ways we grow. I think the older we get, the more likely we're not to do it. And the older I've gotten, the harder it's gotten, if I'm being
Mm,
perfectly honest. And so in the BIPOC Lounge, it's just run by the Rose Gauntlet Foundation at Gen Con. They also do the Women in Gaming and Origins, the the Big Gay Dinner at PAX Unplugged, they really focus on bringing more people into the hobby and more people in the industry through like education. And one of the things you can do is you can sign up for a time slot with a mentor. Previously, every hour of every day was planned, and so I couldn't even grab lunch with somebody. Most days,
Oh,
if I'm
wow.
honest, I skipped lunch, and people just brought me lunch, and I ate during a playtest. And this Gen Con, I decided I was gonna sign up for a mentor, and so I was reading through, and I ended up wanting to meet with the senior marketing manager of Renegade. His thing talked about like Kickstarters. He talked about working with influencers, and I met with him, and this is what I told him, which is made me very anxious because of my experience in the space. I said, I am well aware of how indie publishers create and kickstart a game. They go to conventions, they playtest it with strangers, they build listservs, they go Kickstarter, they launching conventions, they have booths, and
Yep.
I didn't do any of that. I said, I did all of my research and realized I don't think that works for me. And so on a whim, I joined TikTok. I was able to create a following, some sorts of a following. I was able to get playtesters. I was able and that affected my marketing strategy, which is basically going to be a lot of board game content across all platforms. And I said, as someone who didn't do what most people did, as someone who's not seen my game, can you look at my game and tell me what you would highlight? And
Whoa.
I and I
That's
fully
that.
expected. I fully expected him to just be like, "Well, why didn't you do a listserv? Why you like what you hear over and over and over again?" I'm like, "Because
Sure.
it doesn't. I don't have the. It doesn't work for me." And like, if I have resources that I think are better, like I'm not running meta ads, and that's always really big. Like
Yep.
all of the things like I'm not doing. I expected him to just like be super judgy and say, "Well, you should just do these things because people say the same 8 things over and over again." And then he looked at me and he smiled and he said, let's go through it together." So
Nice.
he pulled up one of their pages that they had done from a previous Kickstarter. He explained like the rationale of how things are laid out. He looked through like the instruction manual, he looked through the things, he said you should highlight this here, you should do this, you should do this. And didn't I know why I was originally scared to tell a person in the industry who's marketing manager for Renegade's a pretty big deal to be like, I know what you're supposed to do. I didn't do it. I think, and have it come across as like, this is what made the most sense for me and not like, I know what's better. Or like, there's a lot of things that people could have read into that. And he was so welcoming and he was so
Mm.
nice. And so, like, because I went so far left with how I'm going to launch this campaign, I regret not even at trying to do like listservs or it's one thing to say that doesn't make sense for me, but also it's another thing to be like I didn't try it, right?
Sure. Okay.
Right?
Yep. I
So
get that.
so like do I have like a listserv of people to email? No, I have like their like number and I can text them when I need things. I have and again, when the majority of your community is content creators, it's going to look different than
Mm-hmm.
if you never made content. And so
Hmm.
like I don't regret not doing that, but also like there's only so much time in the day. And when you're one of two people trying to figure out this whole how to do a Kickstarter, how to make a game, how to like while having a full-time job, while having, like being in a long distance relationship, it's a lot to try to like maintain and handle. And so like I wouldn't say I regret not doing that, but like I probably should have just sucked it up and been like, it's fine. I can attempt to do a listserv. And it's not even like I didn't do my research on that. Because when I did all
Right.
my research, I knew like there's MailerLite, there's MailChimp, there are all the things like they're in notes in notebooks in a corner of my desk that like I'm sure I could open. I'm not one to do things just because people do it. And if it doesn't make sense, why am I doing it? And if I'm
It's
like
a great question.
like running meta ads, why does one run meta ads? Because they're trying to put your game in front of people who might be interested. Well, if I have 30 to 60 content creators across platforms show off a really beautiful game, isn't that similar? I'm not saying it's the same, and I'm not saying
Right.
necessarily like the ROI is going to be the same, but it's going to be put in front of a lot of people's eyes. And
Right. It
so
will.
and So that I found that I have alternatives to what people are doing. And even though it may not be exactly the same, it was enough for me and it made sense for how I wanted to spend my time. Because also, how many publishers or like indie publishers do you know who actually can make their own content for their game other than this is my game?
Hmm.
Like becoming a content creator absolutely drastically influenced how I designed the game, what the art looks like, and how it plays.
Wow. Wow. So you in essence are exemplifying everything I've been saying is that on this podcast is that your personal experience informed how you viewed this project and and how you approached it and how you tackled it and developed your own strategy. I love
Correct.
that. That's incredible. Being a content creator. Yeah, that I love how you said that. I was thinking about our conversation at Gen Con, and you were talking about the environment of content creators in terms of game design. Oh man, I wish I could remember what you said because I wanted to give you an opportunity to say it again because it was just so cool and it was tied directly to everything we were talking about right now. Gosh, shame on me for getting what you said to trigger that. I'm a terrible interviewer. Ugh,
You didn't have a notepad out.
I didn't. I didn't because I'm so in the moment. Yeah. So that's on me. Shame on me. Well, but I love how content creators influenced your approach. Like that's unique. And is that why you decided to go publish it yourself rather than approach a big publisher and let them publish Marsh Hollow?
I think I'll get to that in a second.
Okay.
I feel like what separates me from a lot of content creators and just like people in the industry is just intention, right? Like if diversity is part of your platform, you have to be intentional. And
Right.
there are people who say things like it must be nice to be able to hit record, just talk, and then because you had a thought and then post it. But that's not how I make content. There
No.
are people who have said Kervin makes content in his car where he just talks. If he can do it, anyone can do it. Which like it's true, but I actually think about it. I actually
Right.
like there's a reason and a purpose and like branding is super important. And so the intentionality into which I talk about diversity, into which I do my brand and I make my TikToks is what I brought to the my game and my board game design and my publishing of it. And so like there's a reason for everything. And a lot of people their process is just different. And so getting to that point was a lot of brain power and a lot of bandwidth and why it's taken as long as I have. Could you rephrase your question again? I lost it.
Boy, I
Oh,
wish I could play.
why didn't pitch Marsh Hollow? So
Right.
in my initial research of self-publish a game versus pitching games to publishers, you lose all control.
Hmm.
So like I had people tell me, Kervin, I am so glad you are self-publishing this yourself because no publisher would publish this. Marshmallow Cultists, people like publishers don't even necessarily do witches unless they're like Tea Wishes, which is coming out with the
Right.
op, which I'm excited for.
Yep.
But like you lose control of which like I don't want to spend all I've it would have been fine if I pitched it at a certain point. But there's a point where you either pitch it or need to self-publish it. And for me, part of my platform is I wanting to do things different. Part of my platform is like you don't have to do things just because that's how people are like people tell you you have to do it. And
Right.
so when I made the decision that I was going to self-publish this, it's because I wanted to be able to show people what I can do and to show people that what I can design, what I can publish. And I wanted because I think the game is amazing, and I knew it was gonna be really, really good. And ultimately, I would love to be someone who talks about diversity in the space, and to be a personality or to be someone who does that. You need to get a certain amount of success, either as a content creator or as a publisher, for people to like know who you are,
Right.
and to be like to have a following on TikTok is not enough because people don't even know what TikTok is. And so, like, since I'm a designer and I'm a publisher, having a successful game and getting my name out there and like networking and getting people to know me and understand what I'm doing, that's something that ultimately is bringing me to like what I want to do. Because I don't know if I want to publish games forever. Like I always
Okay.
said, I don't want to. I don't like after Marsh Hollow. I'll probably take a break from content creation. I'll probably take a break from and just figure out like if this is what I enjoy or if I've convinced myself I enjoy it. I'm pretty sure I enjoy it,
Yeah,
but when you've posted at least one video a day every day for 4 years, do you really enjoy it? I don't know. We'll find out.
maybe. So I like how so control's important. I get that. As a content creator, you want to create it. You create something that's yours. You take your, or you took. I guess you take, because took is okay. Semantics. Your intentionality in the content you create. You brought that to the design of your game and the way that you approached playtesting, the way you approached your marketing, and hopefully a way that you approached the project. And so I find that fascinating, the intentionality informing the approach to the design, because I've had conversations with designers on this show with different points of view as to pitch or to publish, right? That is the question. And you seem to have an answer for it for you.
I don't
So, no, go ahead.
I don't suggest the board game designer, publisher, content creator route. It's not something that I think everyone can do. It's not something everyone can do
Sure.
because they require very different skill sets. Like
Yes.
board game
Okay.
design is different than board game publishing.
Right.
Both of those are different than content creation. And if I'm honest, I stumbled into content creation. Like it was something that I did like I remember one of my super fans who has become she's now one of my best friends in the industry. She would a year after we met, she said, "Kervin, your first like 20 videos, it looked like you didn't want to be there." And I said, "Correct. I didn't want to be there." But she's like, "But your message was good." I'm like, "Yeah,
Yeah.
but like back then TikTok was all 7-second dance videos. Back then there
Mm-hmm.
were 14 people on board game TikTok and they were doing exclusively how to plays. No one was talking about board games in their car.
Right.
TikTok didn't even want long form content. But like in my bones, I felt that TikTok will eventually want 1 minute videos. And I want and outside of board games, there are a lot of niches where people just talk.
Mm-hmm.
And so I wanted to learn a style, a cadence that was unique to me, that to where I can tell a story. And I remember I was talking to Nicholas Sparkman at Spark Manic, and he said, "Kervin, you don't move, you stare at the camera, and your message is what people connect to, and that's what's the most
Yeah.
important thing." And I don't know if that was on purpose or not. I'm like, it was on purpose. But he said it was really great. And now TikTok wants you to do 1 minute content and like over a minute
Mm-hmm.
content. And I'm lucky enough to be, it took me 3 years to get monetized on TikTok. And TikTok actually paid for all of my prototypes.
Oh, nice. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I don't think we talked about that when we met. So that's interesting. Yeah. That's that whole monetization is a very new thing for me. Obviously, having only been on YouTube for less than a year, and I know it is a thing, but I'll cross that bridge when I get to it.
Me too. Me too.
It's interesting though. YouTube's short content, they just expanded it to 3 minutes. So so obviously there is some value to more than just snippets, right? But unfortunately, my short form content gets more views than my long form. But by having folks like you on the show, maybe it'll draw more people in. And this is some great conversations that people are missing out on if they don't listen. Because, I think I'm a good judge of character, and I bring some really great guests on. And I'm going to be honest, y'all make me look good. I need a lot of help.
I will say the one thing that surprised me the most about content creation on TikTok is like the quality of people who are content creators on the platform. Like that, I didn't expect that. Like there are a lot of people I hang out with and talk, and I had a mutual say, "I didn't know you were actually close to all of them." And I said,
Mm,
if I feature them on my channel, that means like we're actually friends outside of this, and we don't always talk board games, and like I have
right.
their phone numbers and we talk, and I said, "It's not my fault they passed all of my tests. Like I wish more of them didn't. That way they'd leave me alone."
Because there's so many of us, it's hard to keep up. How do you balance keeping up with everyone?
It's called being an extrovert.
Well, I'm an extrovert too, but there's only so much time in a day.
There is only so much time in a day, but also like I almost have exclusively online dated my entire life.
Okay.
And so like And most of my friends, like I've had since high school, like we're very old school. Like the only people they talk on onto the phone are their grandparents and me. Like we send care packages. I send care packages to like their children, and I don't know. It's one of those things where it's not one of those things where it's like there's a schedule and then we like every Tuesday we talk.
Right.
When a lot of your friends are content creators, a lot of your interaction is through the videos that they create, and then
That's
and
true.
then that turns into DMs, that turns into seeing each other at conventions. There are a lot of people, but also you make time for the people you care about. I've always been
Yep.
a big believer in that, and it looks different. And also, I think it's really important to say that I acknowledge that you have a life outside of me. Like, it's okay to not return phone calls every now and then. It's okay that like it was a 10-second phone call. Like someone's like, I only have 10 seconds. I just wanted to say hi. I'm thinking of you. That's amazing
Mm.
to have and have like guys tell me that. Like that's like my favorite thing in the world. And so I I think as someone who's always prioritized friendships and relationships and meaningful conversation,
Yeah.
sometimes like hello is very meaningful
Mm.
because they have kids, they have whole lives, and
Yeah.
to take 2 seconds and to say I'm thinking of you, and that's something I've spent a lot of time working on. Is like if I only have a few seconds, instead of sending like a quick text message, I just give them a
Right.
quick call and leave. I leave notoriously bad and awkward voicemails to be like, hey, cool, I'm thinking of you, okay, cool, bye, Kervin. Like that's literally all of my voicemails. I'm not kidding.
I love it. I struggle because I identify with what you're saying as an extrovert. I love deep, meaningful conversation. Relationships are important to me. It's what drew me to this platform of podcasting. I want a deep, meaningful conversation about meaningful topics rather than just let's talk about board game A and the mechanics and the theme and all those things we talk about. But I want to get to the core of who you are as a person and how that informs how you approach your design or playing this game or whatever. And I struggle with there's just not enough time in the day, balancing work and the podcast and my family. And then I feel like, man, I haven't talked to you or sent you a DM or a text message in 6 months, and that's on me. And you know, yeah.
I, I will say it's different. It's different also because I started 4 years ago when there was only
Hmm.
14 people creating content.
That's fair.
And so like I didn't know that I was doing, I mean I did, like I know I was doing it at the time, but I didn't realize I was kind of like the board game TikTok welcome committee. Like the algorithm knew that like I love watching board game
Oh,
content, so they would send it to me. And then I
right.
would DM them and be like, "Hey, I love that you're making board game content. If you ever want to pick my brain about anything, please feel free. But I just wanted to say hello, and I'm glad that you're here." And that's how I became friends with so. And then it got to a point where like you can't know everybody. I'm like, no,
You
no.
can't. That's hard. That's really hard to grasp and wrestle with because you can't know everyone. Now I'm musing about how I can't know everyone and how sorry I feel that y'all can't know me and I can't know you. So you have to just passively watch or listen to me and listen to me talk to Kervin this week. So
I will say I don't know if this happened to you, but as a content creator who shares more than just like I share aspects of my life on my
mhm.
channel, I share aspects of like who I am and like what I believe. The amount of people who've said things to me over the years that I've never explicitly said was always really confusing. Like as a
Mm,
content creator, like you have no control over how people connect to your content. I say
right.
that like that's like the number one thing I tell content creators is that like there are going to there are going to be people who are going to love the content you hate the most and you're like mad that you created, but there are people who are going to love it and they're going to tell you it's the best thing ever. But like having people, I was like I remember I was having a conversation and they said, oh, blah blah blah, and I said, how do you know that? Because I know, because all of my, again, I'm intentional with all my TikToks. I know what I'm talking about. Like I know for a fact I've never stated what you said. I'm like, well, you said this on this one TikTok, this on this TikTok, and then this here. And if you think about it, it makes sense that you like think this. And I was like, that's creepy. Like I'm glad we're mutuals and it's fine. But
Yeah,
like it's it's it takes me aback that there are people who, like, I'm grateful that there are people who are that thoughtful
right.
and enjoy my content enough to remember things. Like having TikToks quoted back to you is wild. Like
Mm,
it's wild. And so having people do that, it just makes me feel really grateful that I have built a platform that people genuinely connect to.
Yeah. I have never had anyone quote my podcast back to me, but I have had a few people like they talk about it in such a way where I'm like, oh, they did watch it, right? Like they'll drop, you know, key moments and talks, and I'm like, oh wow, okay. There's a lot of, because most of my content's long form. I
Right.
mean,
Right.
you think an hour long, this is episode 136. That's a lot of hours of listening to this guy just wax philosophical about a hobby that he loves with other people. I mean, and the fact that y'all keep listening and keep coming back and join me on this wild ride. Kervin, thank you so much for sharing a little bit of your story and the story of Marsh Hollow. So tell everyone, when is the launch date and where can they find you on all the things?
Marsh Hollow is launching on Tuesday, September 9th,
September 9th.
and it's called Marsh Hollow. It's on Kickstarter, and I will be talking about it all over TikTok, which is Forwhy Games, FORWHYGAM. Yes.
Very good. Very good. Guys, thank you so much. And as always, hit the like and subscribe button. I need that. We're really close to our 1 year goal. I've got 94 subscribers. We're trying to hit 100. The sooner I can hit that, the sooner I can start working on the next goal for the second year. So let's keep going and be kind to each other. Let's play more games.